My name is Marissa, and I'm 34 years old. That beautiful Sunday afternoon at my best friend Emma's baby shower was supposed to be perfect. Pink and white balloons floated everywhere. The garden venue looked magical, and Emma was glowing in her floral maternity dress. Then I saw my husband Jake's face completely change as he stared at his phone. He leaned over and whispered urgently, "We have to go." I tried to brush him off, but when he showed me his phone screen, my blood turned to ice. Before I continue this story, please let me know where you're watching from today. If you appreciate real-life stories about friendship and betrayal, please hit that like button and subscribe. What happened next at that baby shower changed everything we thought we knew about the people closest to us. Emma and I met 15 years ago during college orientation at the University of Washington. We were both 18 nervous nursing students carrying course schedules and campus maps that we pretended to understand. She sat next to me in our first anatomy class, and when the professor started discussing cadaver labs, she whispered that she might faint. I slipped her my water bottle and a granola bar, and that simple gesture sparked a friendship that would define both our lives. Throughout college, we were inseparable. We studied together in the library until 3 in the morning, survived on instant ramen and coffee, and held each other through every crisis. When my mother was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer during our junior year, Emma practically moved into my dorm room. She drove me to the hospital every weekend, sat with me through my mother's chemo treatments, and forced me to eat when grief stole my appetite. She even convinced our professors to let me take exams late, when Mum took a turn for the worse. I was there for Emma too, when she fell into a toxic relationship with Marcus during our senior year. He was charming at first, a pre-med student who swept her off her feet with expensive dinners and romantic gestures. But slowly the red flags appeared. He monitored her phone, criticized her appearance, and isolated her from friends. It took 6 months and one particularly scary incident where he showed up drunk at her apartment at 2 in the morning before she finally let me help her leave him. We changed her locks, blocked his number, and I slept on her couch for 3 weeks until we were sure he had moved on. After graduation, we both got jobs at Seattle General Hospital. We worked different shifts, but always made time for our Thursday night dinners. It was during one of these dinners that I met Jake. He was our waiter at this little Italian place we loved, and he spent the entire evening making Emma and me laugh with his terrible jokes and spot-on impressions of celebrities. Emma insisted I give him my number, and 6 months later, she was my maid of honor at our wedding. Emma met Ryan at a hospital fundraiser 2 years after Jake and I married. He was everything Marcus wasn't. Ryan worked as a financial advisor, came from a good family, and treated Emma like a queen. He remembered every little thing she told him, surprised her with thoughtful gifts, and most importantly, he encouraged her friendships and career ambitions. When they got engaged after 18 months of dating, Jake and I were thrilled. We went on double dates every month, took couples vacations to Mexico and Hawaii, and planned to raise our kids together. Emma's wedding was beautiful. Her cousin Jennifer was her maid of honor since I was 7 months pregnant with my first child. But I still gave the speech at the reception. I talked about finding your person, about how Ryan looked at Emma, the way Jake looked at me with pure adoration and respect. Jennifer caught the bouquet, and I remember thinking how happy Emma's family seemed, how perfect everything was. But perfection cracked when Emma couldn't get pregnant. For 3 years, she tried everything. Temperature tracking, ovulation kits, special diets, acupuncture, meditation, yoga. She eliminated caffeine, took every vitamin suggested by fertility forums, and even tried standing on her head after intimacy, because someone on the internet swore it worked. Ryan seemed supportive, always accompanying her to appointments, holding her when the pregnancy tests came back negative, month after month. The first IVF cycle failed. The embryo didn't implant, and Emma was devastated. The second cycle looked promising until week 6, when the heartbeat stopped. The third cycle was cancelled when her body didn't respond well to the medications. By this point, Emma had spent her entire inheritance from her grandfather on treatments. She was considering using the trust fund her grandmother had left her, though it wasn't supposed to be touched until she turned 35. I watched my vibrant friend fade into someone I barely recognized. She quit attending our Thursday dinners, stopped answering texts, and called in sick to work frequently. Ryan told everyone she was depressed, which was obviously true, but something felt off about how he said it. Almost like he was enjoying the attention and sympathy he received as the devoted husband standing by his struggling wife. The fourth IVF cycle worked. When Emma called me screaming and crying that the test was positive, I dropped everything and drove to her house. We sat on her bathroom floor, staring at 5 different pregnancy tests, all showing 2 lines, afraid to believe it was real. Ryan came home with flowers and sparkling cider, and we all celebrated cautiously. After the 12-week scan showed a healthy baby girl, Emma finally allowed herself to hope. Planning the baby shower became my mission. Emma had been there for everyone else's celebrations, and I wanted hers to be extraordinary. We decided on a garden party theme at the Botanical Gardens venue she had dreamed about since we were 20. I coordinated with her mom, Patricia, her cousins, her work friends, and even reached out to her old college roommates. The guest list grew to 50 people who all loved Emma and wanted to celebrate this miracle baby. I spent weeks creating a memory book filled with photos from our 15-year friendship. Pictures from college, our nursing graduation, her wedding, our couple's vacations, and every milestone in between. Each page had a letter from someone who loved her, sharing their favorite memory and wishes for her journey into motherhood. Jake helped me design a custom cover with ultrasound photos and the baby's due date embossed in gold. The morning of the shower, I woke up at 5 to bake Emma's favorite lemon lavender cake from scratch. Jake squeezed fresh lemons while I whipped the cream cheese frosting. My kids helped arrange the edible flowers on top, and we carefully packed it along with 50 favor bags I had assembled the night before. Jake loaded our car with the massive gift basket we had put together, filled with every baby essential Emma had registered for, plus some luxurious extras for her. When we arrived at the venue at noon, 2 hours before the party, the transformation was breathtaking. Pink and white balloons created an archway over the entrance. Tables were dressed in ivory linens with centerpieces of roses and baby's breath. The dessert table showcased treats from Emma's favorite bakery, and a gorgeous throne-like chair was decorated for the mother-to-be. Jennifer was already there, supposedly helping with setup, though she seemed more interested in her phone than actually doing anything useful. Guests started arriving at 2 o'clock sharp. Emma's work colleagues came in a group carrying a huge gift wrapped in silver paper. Her aunts from Portland drove up together, their arms full of handmade quilts and knitted baby clothes. College friends flew in from California and Texas, making it a true reunion. Everyone was buzzing with excitement, sharing their own pregnancy stories and offering advice. Emma pretended she hadn't already read in countless books and forums. Emma arrived at 2:30, fashionably late as planned. She wore a flowing floral dress that highlighted her 7-month bump perfectly. Her hair was styled in soft waves, and pregnancy had given her that famous glow everyone talks about. Ryan helped her out of the car, playing the attentive husband role perfectly, his hand on her lower back as they walked through the balloon archway. The photographer I had hired captured every moment. Though looking back, I can see the tension in Ryan's jaw that I missed at the time. Patricia gave the welcome speech first, talking about watching her little girl become a woman ready for motherhood. She shared the story of Emma's birth, how she had arrived 3 weeks early during a snowstorm, fighting from the very beginning. There wasn't a dry eye as Patricia described her prayers during Emma's fertility journey and her joy at finally becoming a grandmother. She ended by presenting Emma with a vintage silver rattle that had been in their family for 4 generations. We started with games to warm everyone up. The first was baby predictions, where guests wrote down their guesses for birth date weight and who the baby would look like. Emma's Aunt Margaret, the successful lawyer who had never married or had children, surprised everyone by winning the baby food tasting game correctly, identifying all 10 flavors, while others gagged on the pureed peas. The diaper raffle brought lots of laughter as Jake and 3 other husbands competed to see who could change a diaper fastest on a baby doll while blindfolded. Jake lost spectacularly when he put the diaper on the doll's head. During the gift opening ceremony, Emma sat in the decorated chair while Jennifer and I took turns handing her presents. She received everything from practical onesies to an elaborate baby monitor system that could probably contact NASA. Her grandmother, who was 92 and had flown in from Florida, presented a hand-crocheted blanket she had spent 6 months making. The intricate pattern included Emma's initials and tiny roses that matched the ones in Emma's wedding bouquet. Emma held it to her face and sobbed, completely overwhelmed by the love in that room. Ryan stood behind Emma's chair, but his attention seemed elsewhere. He kept checking his phone, typing quick responses to messages. When Emma's cousin David asked him about work, Ryan gave vague answers about big deals and important clients. I noticed Jake watching Ryan too, a slight frown on his face. Jake has always had good instincts about people, a skill from his years working in security before becoming a software engineer. Jennifer was acting strange too. She had been Emma's maid of honor and closest cousin growing up, but today she seemed disconnected from the celebration. She stood apart from group photos unless specifically called over. And when Emma opened Jennifer's gift, a generic pack of bibs from Target, the contrast to everyone else's thoughtful presence was obvious. Emma covered the awkwardness with enthusiastic thanks. But Patricia shot Jennifer a look that could have curdled milk. I was organizing everyone for the big group photo when Jake pulled me aside. His face had gone pale, and his hand shook slightly as he held his phone. He leaned close to my ear and whispered that we needed to leave immediately. I tried to brush him off, gesturing toward Emma, who was being helped into position for the photo. This was her day, and I wasn't going to abandon her for anything short of an emergency. Jake's grip on my arm tightened. He turned his phone screen toward me, making sure no one else could see. It was a notification from our home security system showing motion detected in our house. That itself wasn't unusual since we had asked our neighbor to check on our cats. But when Jake opened the app and played the recorded video, my whole world shifted. The timestamp showed 1 hour ago. Our front door opened not with forced entry, but with a key. Ryan walked in like he owned the place, using the spare key Emma had from when she house sat for us last summer. But he wasn't alone. Jennifer followed him inside, and as soon as the door closed, she pressed him against the wall and kissed him deeply. This wasn't a first kiss or a moment of weakness. This was familiar, practiced the kiss of 2 people who had done this many times before. But that shocking betrayal was just the beginning of what the camera captured. The security footage continued, and each second made my stomach twist tighter. Ryan and Jennifer moved through my house with purpose, not the casual wandering of curious guests. They went straight to my home office where I keep all our important documents. Jennifer sat at my computer while Ryan rifled through my filing cabinet. The camera in the office clearly showed Jennifer typing on my keyboard, accessing files, while Ryan photographed documents with his phone. Jake fast-forwarded the footage, showing me clips of their 40-minute invasion of our privacy. They went through our mail, our personal files, even our bedroom dresser drawers. Jennifer downloaded files from my computer onto a flash drive she had brought. Ryan found the folder where I keep copies of Emma's medical records, from when I had helped her organize insurance claims for the IVF treatments. He photographed every page, including the psychiatric evaluation from when Emma had been prescribed antidepressants during her darkest period of infertility. But the worst part came when they sat at my kitchen table reviewing their findings. The audio was clear enough to hear their conversation. Jennifer said something about Emma's grandmother's trust fund being worth more than they had thought. Ryan responded that once the baby was born, he would have everything in place for the divorce. He actually laughed when he said Emma was so desperate for a baby that she never questioned his sudden interest in trying IVF again, after previously suggesting they consider adoption. Jake explained that he had been at the hardware store when the first motion alert came through. He had rushed home, but by the time he arrived 15 minutes later, they were gone. He checked our computer's browser history and recent documents. They had accessed Emma's medical records. I had scanned for her grandmother's trust fund documentation that I had helped her review, and even psychiatric evaluation notes from her therapy sessions that she had shared with me during her depression. The security system had captured them, leaving through the back door, Jennifer carrying my spare house key that Emma had given us. They got into separate cars and drove away. Jake had immediately changed all our locks and passwords, but the damage was done. They had information about Emma's mental health history, her financial situation, and her trust fund details that could be used against her in a custody battle. I stood there in the middle of Emma's perfect baby shower, watching her pose for photos. With the biggest smile, one hand cradling her belly, the other holding Ryan's hand. She had no idea that the father of her child and her own cousin had just committed what amounted to identity theft and invasion of privacy. The fake concern on Ryan's face as he helped her adjust her position for the photographer made me physically ill. Jake pulled up more footage from the past month that our system had automatically backed up to the cloud. There were 3 other instances of Ryan entering our house when we weren't home, each time staying for about an hour. We had been so focused on Emma's pregnancy and planning this shower that we hadn't been checking the security alerts regularly. Jake had assumed they were all just the neighbor checking on our cats or package deliveries. The revelation recontextualized everything. Ryan's sudden enthusiasm for trying IVF again after Emma's inheritance came through. Jennifer's distance from Emma over the past year, which Emma had attributed to Jennifer being busy with her new job. The rushed wedding ceremony at the courthouse, just 2 weeks after Emma's positive pregnancy test, which Ryan had said was because he wanted her to have better insurance coverage through his company. I remembered odd moments that now made sense. Ryan's detailed questions about Emma's grandmother's health when she had a minor stroke last year. Jennifer always steering conversations toward Emma's finances, asking if she had good life insurance, if she had updated her will since getting married. The way Ryan had insisted Emma add him to all her bank accounts for convenience during the IVF treatments when she was too emotionally drained to handle the bills. Looking at the timestamp again, I realized they had come to our house during the shower specifically because they knew we would be here. They had planned this invasion for when they could be certain we were occupied. Jennifer had even texted me this morning to confirm what time Jake and I were leaving for the venue. The premeditation made it so much worse. Jake showed me one more thing. He had done a quick search on his phone and found Jennifer's social media profiles. She had a second Instagram account under a different name, and the posts went back 2 years. Photos of her and Ryan at restaurants, on trips, at concerts. All posted under fake names, but clearly them. The dates corresponded with times when Ryan had told Emma he was traveling for work or at conferences. One photo showed Jennifer wearing a necklace I recognized. Emma had been upset when Ryan claimed he had lost it. A family heirloom Emma had given him for their first anniversary. The full picture was devastating. This wasn't just infidelity. This was a calculated long-term plan to defraud Emma. They had been together before Ryan even met Emma. Based on the dates, Jennifer had deliberately introduced Ryan to Emma. They had orchestrated the entire relationship to gain access to Emma's inheritance and trust fund. The pregnancy was just their way of ensuring Ryan would get a favorable settlement in the divorce, plus 18 years of child support calculated from Emma's substantial nursing salary and family money. Watching Emma laugh with other guests, her hand protectively over her belly, I wanted to scream. She was surrounded by people who loved her, but the two people who should have been most trustworthy had orchestrated an elaborate con. The baby she had desperately wanted was being used as a pawn in their scheme. Every needle she had endured, every hormone injection, every devastating negative test had been part of their plan to trap her. Jake and I stood there frozen, unsure how to proceed. The photographer was calling for everyone to gather closer, and Emma was looking around for me, her eyes bright with happiness. How could I destroy her world at her own baby shower? But how could I let her go home with Ryan knowing what we knew? The weight of the decision felt crushing. I made a quick decision. I couldn't let Emma leave with Ryan without knowing the truth, but I also couldn't humiliate her in front of 50 guests. I whispered to Jake to download all the security footage to his phone and email copies to himself for backup. Then I walked back to the party with the biggest fake smile I could manage, taking my place next to Emma for the group photo. After the photo, I suggested to Emma that we take a quick break before the cake cutting. I said I needed to check on something with the venue coordinator and asked if she would come with me. Ryan immediately inserted himself, saying Emma shouldn't be walking around too much in her condition. The false concern in his voice made my skin crawl. I insisted it would just take a minute, and that the venue had a comfortable sitting area where Emma could rest. Emma, always trusting, took my arm and walked with me toward the building. Ryan started to follow, but Jake intercepted him with questions about his work, physically blocking his path with the subtlety of someone trained in security. I heard Ryan's frustrated voice as we walked away, but Jake kept him engaged, asking detailed questions about financial planning that Ryan couldn't easily escape from without seeming rude. Once we were out of sight, I steered Emma to a quiet bench under a tree. She was glowing, chattering about how perfect everything was, how grateful she felt for all the love surrounding her baby. My heart broke with every word. I took her hands in mine and told her I needed to show her something important. Her expression shifted from joy to concern as she registered my serious tone. But before I could show her the footage, Jennifer appeared slightly out of breath from hurrying after us. She said Ryan was looking for Emma, that he was worried about her being away from the party. The audacity of her standing there pretending to care when she had just been in my house stealing information made my hands shake with rage. I told Jennifer we needed a few minutes alone, but she insisted on staying, saying family should be together for important moments. That's when I realized I couldn't do this privately. Jennifer would spin whatever story she needed to protect herself and Ryan. If I showed Emma the footage alone, Jennifer would claim I had edited it or misunderstood what she was seeing. They would gaslight Emma into doubting the evidence, use her history of depression against her, make her think she was being paranoid or hormonal. I made a different choice. I stood up and walked back toward the party with Emma and Jennifer, following, both confused by my sudden movement. When we reached the main gathering, I called out loudly that I had something important to share with everyone. The chatter died down as 50 pairs of eyes turned toward me. Ryan's face went rigid, and he started moving toward Emma. But Jake stepped sideways, accidentally blocking his path again. I pulled out my phone and connected it to the portable speaker the DJ had set up for the party. My hands were steady now, fueled by protective rage for my best friend. I announced that our home security system had captured something this afternoon that everyone needed to see, especially Emma. Ryan lunged forward, then shouting that this was inappropriate, that I was ruining Emma's special day. His reaction only confirmed his guilt to everyone watching. Patricia, Emma's mother, stood up and told Ryan to let me speak. Something in my expression must have conveyed the seriousness of the situation, because she moved to stand beside her daughter, her arm going around Emma's shoulders, protectively. Other family members instinctively formed a semicircle, creating a barrier between Emma and Ryan without fully understanding why. I played the audio from the security footage, the conversation between Ryan and Jennifer at my kitchen table. Their voices filled the garden space crystal clear in the sudden silence. Jennifer talking about the trust fund value. Ryan laughing about Emma's desperation for a baby. Their discussion of the planned divorce timeline. The admission that they had been together for 2 years long before Ryan had supposedly met Emma at the hospital fundraiser. Emma's face went white, then red, then white again. She swayed on her feet, and multiple people rushed to steady her. Patricia's expression transformed from confusion to murderous rage as she processed what she was hearing. David, Emma's cousin, who worked in tech, grabbed Jennifer's arm when she tried to back away, holding her in place with grim determination. Ryan tried to speak over the audio, claiming it was taken out of context, that it wasn't what it seemed. But then the video started playing on my phone screen, and I held it up so those closest could see Ryan and Jennifer kissing in my hallway. Emma made a sound I had never heard from her before. Something between a gasp and a wail. Her legs buckled, and we barely caught her before she hit the ground. The scene erupted into controlled chaos. Patricia and Margaret helped Emma to a chair while someone called for water. The psychiatric nurse in Emma kicked in even through her shock, and she started doing breathing exercises to prevent hyperventilating. Ryan tried to approach her, but Thomas, Emma's brother, who had driven up from California, stepped directly in his path. Thomas had played college football and still looked like he could tackle someone through a wall if necessary. Jennifer started babbling excuses, saying it wasn't supposed to happen like this, that she had tried to stop it, that Ryan had seduced her. But I wasn't done. I pulled up Jennifer's secret Instagram account and passed my phone around, showing the date stamps on photos going back 2 years. Jennifer with Ryan at a beach in Mexico when he had supposedly been at a conference. Jennifer wearing Emma's grandmother's necklace that had mysteriously disappeared. Jennifer and Ryan at a jewelry store dated 3 months before he had proposed to Emma, with what he claimed was a spontaneous decision. Emma's voice cut through the noise, surprisingly strong despite the tears streaming down her face. She asked Ryan directly if he had ever loved her. The garden went completely silent, everyone holding their breath for his answer. Ryan's mask finally slipped completely. He sneered and said love had nothing to do with it. That Emma had been an easy mark, with her desperate need for approval and family money just sitting there waiting to be accessed. The sound Emma made then was primal, but instead of collapsing, she stood up. She walked over to Ryan with the dignity of someone who had survived years of infertility treatments and wasn't about to let this break her. She removed her wedding ring and threw it at his feet. Then she turned to Jennifer and said 3 words that carried more weight than any scream could have. "You're dead to me." Patricia was already on the phone with someone speaking in low, urgent tones. Turns out she was calling Margaret the lawyer aunt, who, despite being at the party, was immediately switching into professional mode. Margaret started recording everything on her phone, instructing David to do the same from different angles. She told Ryan and Jennifer that they were being documented, and anything they said could be used in legal proceedings. Ryan made the mistake of threatening Emma, then saying she couldn't prove anything, that he would take the baby, that no court would give custody to a woman with a documented history of depression and mental instability. That's when Jake finally had enough. He pulled up the additional security footage showing Ryan and Jennifer stealing documents from our house. He also revealed he had already called the police about the break-in and identity theft, and they were on their way. Jennifer tried to run then, but she didn't get far. Emma's work friends, a group of 5 nurses, who had seen their share of domestic situations, surrounded her without touching her, making it clear she wasn't going anywhere until the police arrived. Ryan pulled out his phone to call someone, probably a lawyer, but his hands were shaking so badly he dropped it. When he bent to pick it up, Thomas accidentally kicked it under a table. No one made any effort to retrieve it for him. Emma asked me to show her everything, all the footage, all the social media posts, everything we had discovered. She sat there watching it all with the clinical detachment she used when dealing with difficult patients. She asked Jake technical questions about the timestamps and digital footprints. She was building her case even through her devastation, the strategic mind that had gotten her through nursing school taking over. The police arrived within 20 minutes. 2 officers who took statements from everyone. The security footage was clear evidence of breaking and entering, even with a key, since permission had been revoked by the homeowners. The identity theft charges would be harder to prove, but not impossible, given the evidence of them accessing and photographing personal documents. Ryan and Jennifer weren't arrested, but they were formally trespassed from the venue and warned that restraining orders were being filed. As Ryan was escorted to his car, he tried one more manipulation, telling Emma she would regret this, that no one would want a single mother with baggage. Emma's response was perfect. She said she would rather be alone than with someone who saw her and her child as nothing more than a paycheck. The baby would have 50 people who truly loved them, which was more than Ryan could say about himself. Jennifer broke down, crying, begging Emma for forgiveness, claiming Ryan had manipulated her too. But Emma was done. She told Jennifer that she had not only lost a cousin today, but also any claim to being part of this family. Patricia added that Jennifer was no longer welcome at any family gatherings and would be removed from all family trust documents immediately. The extended family nodded in agreement, closing ranks around Emma. After they left, the party transformed into something else entirely. Instead of a baby shower, it became a rally of support. Everyone shared their resources. Margaret would handle the divorce pro bono. David would help secure all of Emma's digital accounts and finances. Thomas would help move Ryan's belongings out of the house. The nurses would adjust their schedules to make sure Emma was never alone if she didn't want to be. Emma's grandmother, who had been silent through the drama, stood up with her walker and made her way to Emma. She announced that she was immediately transferring the trust fund into Emma's sole name, removing all waiting periods and conditions. She also revealed something no one knew. She had never trusted Ryan and had kept the bulk of the family money in a separate trust he knew nothing about. Emma would be more than financially secure. The caterer, who had witnessed everything, refused to accept payment for the shower, saying it was her contribution to Emma's fresh start. The photographer offered to delete any photos with Ryan and Jennifer and to do a new maternity shoot for free whenever Emma felt ready. Even strangers were moved by the solidarity, offering support and resources. As the sun began to set, Emma stood up to speak. She thanked everyone for their support, but said she needed to process everything. She asked me to drive her home and stay with her, which of course I agreed to. As we gathered her gifts, everyone formed a receiving line, hugging her, whispering support, promising to be there for whatever she needed. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal procedures and emotional processing. Margaret worked with frightening efficiency, filing for divorce on grounds of fraud and adultery. The security footage and Jennifer's social media posts provided overwhelming evidence. Ryan hired a lawyer who quickly realized the case was unwinnable. The evidence showed clear premeditation and fraud, which in Washington state meant Ryan would get nothing from the marriage and might face criminal charges. Emma stayed with Jake and me for the first week. She barely ate, barely slept, but she never stopped fighting. She contacted every bank, every credit card company, every investment account, methodically removing Ryan's access and checking for any unauthorized transactions. She found 3 credit cards he had opened in her name, without her knowledge running up $30,000 in debt. All of it traceable to purchases for Jennifer through the detective work of David and his tech skills. The restraining order was granted immediately given the evidence of theft and fraud. Ryan was ordered to stay 500 feet away from Emma and could only communicate through lawyers. He was also banned from the hospital where Emma worked after he showed up trying to convince her colleagues that she was having a mental breakdown. Security footage of him lying to her supervisor just added to the legal case against him. Jennifer fled the state within a week, moving to Texas where she had a friend. But running didn't help her escape consequences. She was charged with identity theft and conspiracy to commit fraud. The district attorney, who happened to be a friend of Margaret's, was particularly interested in prosecuting given the premeditated nature and the fact that they had targeted a pregnant woman. Jennifer would eventually plead guilty to lesser charges, but would have a criminal record that would follow her forever. Emma's divorce was finalized in record time, just 3 months. Ryan got nothing except legal bills and a destroyed reputation. Word had spread through his professional network about what he had done. His financial planning company fired him for ethical violations after clients started pulling their accounts. The last anyone heard, he was working at a used car dealership in Oregon, which seemed fitting for someone who had tried to sell Emma a false life. The custody issue that Ryan had threatened turned into nothing. His fraud and deception meant no judge would grant him anything more than supervised visitation, and even that would require him to complete parenting classes and pay all back child support first. He never even tried to fight for custody once he realized Emma's family would bankrupt him with legal fees if he tried. Emma threw herself into preparing for the baby with renewed determination. She transformed the nursery, removing every trace of Ryan's influence. The walls were repainted in soft yellows instead of the blue he had insisted on. She chose the name Victoria, not just meaning victory, but representing her triumph over deception. Every ultrasound appointment I was there. Every late-night craving run, Jake was on call. Her village was strong and real. The birth came 2 weeks early, probably triggered by the stress, but Emma handled it like the warrior she had become. Victoria entered the world, screaming 7 pounds of perfect fury, already fighting like her mother. I was in the delivery room, holding Emma's hand, coaching her through contractions, while Patricia held her other hand. The moment Victoria was placed on Emma's chest, every bit of pain from the past months seemed to wash away. Victoria was perfect. She had Emma's bright eyes and determined chin. Nothing of Ryan's features seemed apparent, which felt like cosmic justice. The hospital room filled with real family people who had proven their loyalty. Margaret brought legal documents ensuring Victoria's financial future was protected. Thomas had driven 16 hours straight to be there. Even Emma's 92-year-old grandmother made it, holding her great-granddaughter with tears streaming down her weathered cheeks. 3 months after Victoria's birth, Emma returned to work part-time. Her colleagues had decorated her return with banners and had organized a rotating babysitting schedule so she never had to worry about childcare. The hospital administration, having heard her story, promoted her to charge nurse with better hours and higher pay. She was thriving professionally, while Ryan was reportedly living in a studio apartment and driving for a rideshare company. The real vindication came 6 months later. Emma was contacted by a woman from Portland who had seen news coverage of the divorce case. She revealed that Ryan had tried the same scheme with her 5 years earlier, but she had discovered his plan before marriage. She had evidence of Ryan and another woman, not Jennifer, planning to defraud her. This woman had reported it to the police, but nothing had come of it until now. Her evidence added to the criminal case against Ryan, who was eventually convicted of fraud and served 8 months in jail. Jennifer tried to reach out once, sending a long letter full of excuses and accusations that Ryan had controlled her. Emma burned it without reading past the first paragraph. Some betrayals don't deserve the energy of anger. Jennifer's mother, Emma's aunt, was so ashamed that she temporarily moved out of state. The family rift Jennifer created would never fully heal, but Emma was at peace with that. 1 year after that fateful baby shower, we held another party at the same venue. This time it was Victoria's first birthday, and the guest list was even bigger. Everyone who had stood by Emma wanted to celebrate this milestone. The same caterer donated her services again. The same photographer captured moments of pure joy instead of devastating revelation. The garden was filled with laughter and love the way it should have been the first time. Emma gave a speech that day that I'll never forget. She stood there holding Victoria, who was grabbing at the microphone and babbling happily, and thanked everyone for showing her what real family meant. She said that while she wouldn't wish her experience on anyone, she was grateful for the clarity it had brought. She now knew exactly who deserved to be in her daughter's life, and who had earned the title of family through loyalty rather than blood. She talked about the signs she had missed or ignored. Ryan's love bombing at the beginning that had felt like romance but was actually manipulation. The way he had isolated her from friends during the IVF treatments, claiming he was protecting her from stress. How he had used her vulnerability and desperate desire for a child to control her. She spoke not with bitterness, but with the wisdom of someone who had survived and wanted others to learn from her experience. Emma started volunteering at a women's shelter, sharing her story with others who had experienced betrayal and manipulation. She became an advocate for financial literacy, teaching women how to protect their assets and recognize financial abuse. She worked with Margaret to create a legal fund for women who couldn't afford divorce lawyers when leaving deceptive partners. Victoria would grow up watching her mother turn pain into purpose. The trust fund from Emma's grandmother had grown substantially under proper management, ensuring Victoria would have every opportunity in life. But more importantly, she would have something money couldn't buy. She would have a mother who had faced deception and emerged stronger. She would have a chosen family of 50 people who had proven their loyalty when it mattered most. She would have the example of integrity triumphing over greed. I often think about that moment at the baby shower when Jake showed me his phone. How different things might have been if our security system hadn't caught them. If we hadn't had clear evidence. If Ryan and Jennifer had been smarter criminals. Emma might have spent years in a marriage built on lies, slowly drained of her money and spirit. Victoria might have grown up with a father who saw her as nothing more than a meal ticket, and a cousin who had helped orchestrate her mother's pain. Instead, Victoria is growing up surrounded by truth and authentic love. She just started walking last week, taking her first steps at our house during Thursday dinner, the tradition Emma and I had maintained for 15 years. She tottered from Emma to me, both of us crying and cheering. Jake caught it on video, real documentation of a real moment, nothing staged or false about it. Ryan has never met Victoria. He signed away his parental rights in exchange for Emma dropping the criminal charges for the identity theft. He moved across the country and started over, hopefully having learned that schemes and manipulation eventually collapse. Jennifer disappeared entirely from social media and public life. Some mutual acquaintances said she was working as a receptionist somewhere in Texas, all her grand plans reduced to nothing. Emma is dating again, carefully and slowly. She met someone through the single parents support group she joined. He's a widower with a 2-year-old son, someone who understands loss and betrayal, though his came through death rather than deception. They take things one day at a time, both protecting their children while exploring the possibility of trust again. He knows her whole story and has never once suggested she should get over it or move on faster. The baby shower gifts that had been opened that dramatic day were eventually donated to the women's shelter, except for the handmade blanket from Emma's grandmother. That sits in Victoria's nursery, a reminder that some things are exactly what they appear to be. The memory book I had made for Emma sits on her coffee table, filled with pictures of the family she chose and who chose her back. We added new pages documenting Victoria's first year and all the genuine moments of love that followed the false ones. Looking back, I'm grateful for that security system, for Jake's paranoid insistence on cameras in every room after our neighbor had been burglarized. I'm grateful for his instincts that something was off about Ryan. I'm grateful for the strength Emma showed when her world shattered in front of 50 witnesses. But mostly, I'm grateful that when tested, real love and loyalty proved stronger than greed and deception. The trust that was broken that day can never be fully restored. Emma will always double-check feelings against facts. She will always have that moment of hesitation before believing someone's words. But she's not bitter or closed off. She's wisely cautious, teaching Victoria through example that trust should be earned through consistent actions, not given freely to pretty words and false promises. She's raising a daughter who will know her worth isn't determined by whether someone chooses her, but by how she chooses herself. Every Thursday, we still have dinner. Now it includes Victoria in her high chair, throwing pasta and laughing. Sometimes Emma's new boyfriend joins us with his son. Jake teaches them both sign language, which he learned when Victoria was born, so she could communicate before she could speak. These dinners aren't fancy or Instagram-worthy. They're messy and loud and interrupted by diaper changes and tantrums. They're also real, built on 15 years of proven friendship and tested loyalty. When people ask Emma how she got through it all, she says she was never alone. Even in that horrible moment when her husband and cousin's betrayal was exposed to everyone she knew. She was surrounded by people who immediately chose her side without question. She didn't have to explain or convince or prove she deserved support. Her real family, both blood and chosen, simply closed ranks and fought for her. That's what real love looks like. Not grand gestures and sweeping romance, but showing up when someone's world falls apart and helping them rebuild it piece by piece. What would you have done if you discovered your partner had been planning to betray you all along? Have you ever had a moment where someone you trusted completely showed their true colors? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about resilience and triumph. Share this with someone who needs to hear that they can survive betrayal and build something better from the ruins. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember that sometimes the worst moments of our lives clear the path for the best ones. The family you choose and who chooses you back is worth more than any inheritance. And the truth, no matter how painful, is always better than living a beautiful lie.